I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is All the Mods 9 to the Sky. So last episode, we set this bad boy up. Oh yes, a mechanism fission reactor that is running very, very quickly and producing a ton of byproducts for us right now. It's not producing antimatter just yet, but it is producing all of the byproducts we need. Those byproducts, by the way, today are going to be used to get into ProjectE and to be able to integrate it into our applied energistic system. Now, I bet you probably thought we were going to be jumping into an SPS and producing antimatter, which we are going to get into eventually. But for right now, the main thing I want to deal with are these things right here, the polonium pellets and also the plutonium pellets. However, we don't need as many of the plutonium pellets just yet. We really need these polonium ones. These are the ones that we are going to use to make red matter. So today we're going to go through the automation process of producing dark matter, which is also going to get us into the sky steel ingots, which could be very nice because that allows us to get into some of the more advanced stuff in applied energistics, such as the mega cells mod, which is going to be just tremendous. So hopefully you guys are ready for some very fun automations, because that's what today's video is going to be all about. Now, first things first, let's go ahead and start producing dark matter and working on all of the things that we're going to need in order to get that done. And first things first is we need to probably start the process of producing the eternalist fuel. Now, this process can be done inside of your applied energistic system. So if I look at the eternalist fuel, which is this right here, you note that I do have a crafting pattern that allows me to make this. But here's the catch. It is going to require you to have 3 Philosopher's Stone in order to actually do this. And it's also pretty darn slow. It's not a super fast process doing it this way. So instead, what I want to do is I want to set up a way to keep a certain amount of this always in stock. Now, this process should be as simple as using a crafter and having an export bus that sends a very specific item, aka coal, which is the base of this whole operation, sending coal inside of the crafter and then basically receiving, using an importer, the product that we process inside of this machine. Now, the thing we're going to limit, however, I think what I want to do is I want to limit our export bus. And so we're going to use a level emitter to basically say, hey, check for the amount of eternalist fuel that we have in our system. Or better yet, I could shut off the crafter so it no longer continues to craft. That one being probably one of the easiest ones, since I can put the level emitter directly on the crafter like this. Now we'll come back to the redstone here in a second, but for right now, let's go ahead and start focusing on how we're actually going to craft these things, because this can be the most confusing part. So I want to place in my Philosopher's Stone. I also want a slot for coal. I want a slot for the alchemical coal, the Mobius fuel, and also the eternalist fuel. And then I want to go ahead and I just want to fill all of these inventories and making sure that these are the only places these things can go. And then I'm going to hit remember current. So now I can pull out all of the cobble, and notice these have a specific filtered slot in them, the only place they're allowed to go, which is perfectly fine. Actually, we probably don't even need the eternalist fuel there. We can probably go ahead and forget this, I think, by right clicking here and then remembering that slot. So perfect. So this is actually going to go in the output slot. So let's go ahead and get this all crafted up. So first things first, we need to click on the crafting slot, add our Philosopher's Stone, and then add our coal. Now this is going to create a recipe, but we want this to go back into the input here. So it needs to be on the int right here. And that is going to set this recipe to craft these up and send the result into the inventory here, which is exactly what we want. And it's going to be the same for the next one as well. We're going to take the Philosopher's Stone. We are going to take the next tier fuel and we're going to craft it up, make sure it's set to int, and that's ready to go as well. Then we go to the final one, and this is where things get a little bit different. It's the Philosopher's Stone, the Mobius fuel, but this one's going to be set to exit with the C here. Basically, this is going to send the output of the eternalist fuel to the output, but it's going to keep things like buckets and other things like that inside of the internal inventory. And so once that is done, that should be the final recipe. And notice it kept the Philosopher's Stone in here, and the eternalist fuel has now made its way out. So now that we have that set up, now we can really focus on the redstone side of things. And I know redstone can always be kind of confusing, but we basically want to check in our inventory and we want to run a couple of conditions. We want to say, let's go ahead and keep like 1028 of these always in stock. That's just a good number, right? And it says right here, emit when levels are above or equal to amount. And that is perfectly fine. I actually just like the default. And so by leaving it there, this is going to be off. So when it emits a signal, we want the machine here to shut off. So it says off to activate or on to activate. In our case, we want off to mean activate. When it receives a signal, it will then shut this machine off. And so it will no longer allow anything to craft, meaning that the inventory here will fill up with coal, and whenever it's ready is the only time it will start to send again. Speaking of coal, we need to make sure we have coal going in here and making sure that it is crafting said coal and sending it into this inventory. And that's basically it. This is a way of limiting certain items and keeping them always being produced. And this is one of those things that we definitely want produce. And then we definitely want acceleration cards going into this machine as well. We want these to be able to send as many acceleration upgrades as we can, so we can make sure this goes as fast as possible, just like you see here. Probably even upgrade the input maybe. It might be able to keep up. Now, I think the only other hard thing left in the list to be able to make dark matter is going to be sky steel ingots, as this is a process that we need to basically dip these items into lava, and then they will convert, much like the Applied Energistics Fluix does. Now, as far as Skystone goes, we have this technically ready to go. I have the seeds for Skystone already going. But the only thing that we don't have yet is making sure we can make charge Certus. Now, we do get a little bit from sieving, but I would also like to make a recipe for it. And for example, we can make, it looks like 6 charged Certus just by sending it into an energizing orb. And so this base is definitely covered. And so now we can make charged if we run out. And so now for the fun part, getting to actually automate this. Now, my idea behind automating this is essentially having a pattern provider send the required ingredients into a world transporter. Now, I don't know if this will interact directly. I haven't tested this yet, so we may have to raise this up and put an inventory here. But the idea is that the world transporter will send the items out. Now, I can go ahead and test this out by making a pattern real quick for this and see if it will actually allow this to work. So the main thing I'm going to need here is the sky steel, and we can create a pattern just like this that is requesting these items out. So by putting that in, I can now request that item. So let's go ahead and say, send one out. It looks like we're missing Skystone. I don't have a recipe set up for that. So let's go ahead and build that real quick as well. All these fun things. This is a crafting recipe. Perfect. So now we have Skystone. The only thing left to do is to now try it. So let's request. Does it send out? Okay, so no. So we're going to have to send it to an inventory and then have this send back. Now I'm going to go ahead and use a personal barrel here. I think this is going to look kind of cool. And I'm actually going to place this right here. We don't actually want to accidentally interact with this. So I'm going to keep it on the same level, and I'm going to put that pattern provider back and put my recipe back in here. Now this should send to that barrel. And then we want the lava to be 1 block down. So right down here, we can set the lava. Actually, this, I don't think this can be lava logged, I would say. Oh, yep, nope, it breaks it, as you can see right here. So this actually needs to go even further down. So let's grab some concrete, and we're going to get this bad boy set up. So right down here. And then the lava is going to go in this place right here. But before we do that, let's go ahead and place our world transporter, which I'm really just wanting to use this. And let's go ahead and test it now. So it should send to our personal barrel, which is a fancy looking barrel. And let's see, sky steel. And notice it sent all of the items down. That's exactly what we want, and almost instantaneously, right? And we also want to make sure this, do not push crafting ingredients. No, we actually want to change this, and we want this to be in locking mode. And so we want to set it up to until primary crafting result has returned. Possibly. Actually, we may not even need to worry about that. You know, the more I think about it, it might be nice just to send as many of the items all at once at possible. That would be kind of cool, actually. Okay, so let's go ahead and test this out. So let's get our lava placed in. I know, it's like kind of a crazy automation here, but really fun, I think. We also want to be able to pull these items in when they're done. To be able to pull the items in, we can just simply use an advanced item collector, which is fantastic because it has a filter. So we can set this to whitelist mode, and we just need the sky steel as the thing that goes into the whitelist filter. I haven't made any yet, so it looks like we cannot drag in. So I'm going to go ahead and craft this. And notice, by the way, it just took the items immediately. That is not what we want to happen just yet. So let's remove this, try the sky steel again. There we go. It sent the items in and it did produce the sky steel. Now we have some to use for a filter. And by the way, every time I do this, I can just cancel the craft. That's what I've been doing to be able to test. It's really nice for testing. So put this in whitelist mode, and then we'll filter this out. I'm going to make this a bit smaller. And then in the Y value, I'm also going to make it pretty small. It only needs to go down enough. So I think 3 is good, making this a nice small area to interact with. Anything that goes in here just immediately goes into our system anyways. So now with that complete, this should be ready to go. As soon as we go ahead and craft, for example, sky steel, like 20 of them, it should just send all of the items required, craft them, and goes right immediately into the advanced collector. And I think with that, we now have the ability to make all of these things. So like all the modium we have automated, inderium we have automated, and netherite scrap we also have automated. So now we should be able to build our recipe. Now this does build the recipe wrong. So let's take some all the modium, for example, and make sure we set this up appropriately. And inderium, those do not matter as much. You can see I can just instantly craft inderium. What I need to do is remove the eternalist fuel. So eternalist fuel, let's go ahead and craft up a block of that. We're going to remove this from this part of the recipe and this. We're going to put this here, put the inderium here, remove that, and make sure this is the last thing in the list. And once that's done, that should be the perfect setup. And now it's as easy as us simply putting that pattern inside of a pattern provider on our summoning altar. And now we can literally request dark matter. So like 10 dark matter, for example, instantly crafting all of those is just ridiculous. And there's 10 dark matter just like that. So now we get to move into the next thing, and that is red matter. And we've already got everything prepped up and ready to go for this, besides everything except for an echo shard. So to get an echo shard, I think what I want to do is I want to link this into my hostile neural network, and I want to be able to kill the warden. And we've already summoned the island that should allow us to do this. So with the power of an unobtainium sword with sharpness 10, I'm hoping that this can definitely deal with it and deal with the warden pretty quickly. We need to summon it though. And so to do this, we've got to make this shrieker mad at us. Yes, and this should eventually summon this guy, and we are going to put it in our hostile neural network. There we go. Shrieking up. Come on. Couple more. I did break one of these shriekers, which was near my base, because yeah, it does get kind of annoying if you're placing blocks nearby. All right, any moment now. It just takes a little bit to get it to spawn here. By the way, these things can also be gathered by sieving, which is another thing, these echo shards that we're needing for this. But I never upgraded to a netherite, so that's been kind of a problem. But this is going to allow me to do it regardless. So yeah, let's take this guy out. It probably won't take that long. It's so powerful. And already gone. No, that is so ridiculous. We didn't even get one of the echo shards that we need, but thankfully our deep learner, by the way, it will grant us an echo shard. I just got to kill this guy a few more times. Yep. So for the final one, yeah, just crit jumping does this thing in very quick. And then just, I gotta get out of here before I start summoning more. And so just like all of our other simulation chambers, this one is now set up, ready to go, and should start producing the warden predictions. So now for the fun part. We've already produced our plutonium pellets, which are going to be required for that red matter, right? So the plutonium pellet, we have the ability to now craft insanium, even though I think I should probably switch this to doing it not from within our crafter, but I do have the ability to craft it like this. And then we also have the unobtainium as the catalyst. So we have everything ready to go in order to request these immediately. That is fantastic. So I'm going to grab a couple of these because I don't have this going directly into my storage just yet. Because I think down the road, we're going to stop producing these. We're not going to really need to have these infinitely going, especially when we start producing antimatter. So just having these in my inventory will be fine for now, because there's only so many things you can craft with the red matter. And just like our other one, we just need to make sure that the final thing, our catalyst, is the last thing in the list. And voila, we now have a process crafted up, ready to go for the red matter. Oh, and it's as simple as placing this in, and now we can craft ourselves red matter. Let's do our first red matter. And I think that was it. That is so crazy. All right. And this red matter unlocks like everything. And I mean everything. It unlocks the ability to make some of the best tools in the game. For example, the Qatar, which is an insanely powerful insta-killing tool that will just slay anything in its path, including withers. There's all kinds of other useful tools that we can make. The gem armor is by far the best armor in the pack. So we can make that. We can actually fight the Chaos Dragon in that and never die. It's ridiculous. But we also gain access to the one thing that I'm more interested in, and that is getting access to this, the ME transmutation interface from AppliedE, and all of the things from AppliedE. And to fully get started with the ability to have EMC inside of our applied energistic system, we need the ME transmutation module. This just needs to be attached to our system, and it looks like we're going to need singularities. So I want to show you one of the easiest ways to actually craft singularities. Now, all I need to do to get this up and running is use a matter condenser, and then we're going to put a 64K in here and make sure this is set to producing singularities. Now, this is going to need 256,000 of an item destroyed essentially in order to make a singularity. And that item that we're going to be destroying is going to be cobblestone. Now, to be able to get unlimited cobblestone in this pack, well, Applied Energistics also has us covered there, because we have a cell that we can craft that has infinite cobblestone. It is insane that we have this, but yes, we can literally use this right here. As soon as it crafts up my 16K storage component, we can just infinitely have access to cobble. And now with this, I do want to put it in a higher priority drive, for example, the one that we have just voiding everything. And there we go. We now have an infinite cobblestone cell. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to infinitely send cobble to this. So I'll just drag cobblestone here. And then I want to make sure that I put my acceleration cards in here and get that going as fast as possible. And so what we should notice is just giving it a little bit of time, it's going to ramp up and is really going to start sending a ton of cobble into this very quickly. And this will end up giving me more singularities than I'll probably ever use. Now, I'd also want to mention that there is a infinite water cell as well, even though making infinite water in Applied Energistics is very, very simple. But in this case, you can see right here, we have an infinite water cell in case we don't want to deal with, for example, hooking a external storage to like a sink or something. Now, some other things that I've seen people do is, for example, place a pattern provider directly on the matter condenser, and then use that pattern provider to essentially insta-send the whole 256,000 into here very, very fast if you do it that way. But I believe it does cost a huge amount of power and strain on your Applied Energistics system. Just something to sort of note. Now, I did end up adding more export buses onto the outside of this to make it significantly faster, in which it definitely has increased in speed, because I now have all of the singularities that I'm probably going to need in order to craft all of this EMC interface stuff. With that, the first thing on the list to make is going to be the ME transmutation module. And so this needs to go apparently on the network just somewhere. Somewhere that I'm assuming has a channel. For example, this is a dense cable. Will this go on here as device offline? I think this actually has to be on a regular cable in order for it to work. So let's just put it on, for example, let's see, any of our cables that we have over here. Apparently it can just be connected anywhere on a network. So there we go. For example, it's right here, at least for now. And what that should allow us to do by default is apparently access our EMC value. And so that is going to be shown right here. And we're supposed to be able to use for example, that EMC value inside of autocrafts apparently. So if we were to, for example, make an autocraft that utilizes logs, we should be able to use this. Oh, wow. Actually, it automatically adds an autocraft for every single thing in the system that has EMC. Oh, that is super cool. So anything that has EMC associated with it, you can see here now has a plus, meaning that we can autocraft those items. That is pretty darn powerful. Okay, so that means anything we've learned is in here and able to be crafted, even if I didn't have a pattern for it. For example, the logs, right? All of these logs, I didn't have a pattern set for dark oak, but I can go ahead and request some dark oak, and it's going to utilize the EMC value in order to do that operation, and it does it instantly. Now that's super handy, but we still need to make another thing, and that is basically making a transmutation tablet that is an applied energistics tablet, and should allow us to just learn anything that's learnable inside of our system as well. Now this is going to need a block of dark matter, so I better get to crafting up all of our resources. That is so cool watching that craft, by the way. And definitely good to have like front and center of our crafting system. But there we go. Now we have this, and we should be able to make an ME transmutation terminal. Now this does or can connect directly up to our system here, but I actually want to turn this directly into a wireless terminal. So I've just, all I got to do to get that up and running is just craft it with the other components, similar to all of our other ones. And this currently is not linked. But to be able to link it, we just right click here, and there we go. So this terminal, it looks very similar to like our transmutation tablet. However, inside here, we can actually burn our items to learn them. And we can also click this button here, learn all transmutation items that are in storage. Are you sure? Yes. And so now everything that was inside of our applied energistics system that was learnable has now been learned. That quick and easy. Now, one thing that would have been really cool is if this would have added a new section that would have just been for EMCable only items. Oh, that's cool. But this is like a searchable transmutation table. I mean, even though we should be able to also do that from within our applied energistics system normally. And so now that we have this, all of those crafting recipes are available to us. So now what we can do is find a way to, well, generate a ton of EMC. And I think we can actually loop this from our infinite cobblestone gen. So with our ME transmutation interface here that we should be able to generate, we might be able to get this to work. So now that we have this, I can go ahead and link in, for example, with like a regular export bus. And what I can do is I should be able to export out of our system the cobblestone and have it automatically sent into the transmutation interface. So my idea is to have the interface here, and we have our export bus that is connected, and just send cobble, and then of course speed it up. And that should be a significant amount of EMC that should be being generated. Let's see, will we be able to see this number going up any? It does look like it is going up. Yes, it is going up very, very slowly. So if we go ahead and then put the speed upgrades in here, we should start to see this number increasing exponentially. And of course, will continue to increase over and over. And this is essentially generated EMC for us. Now, another fast way that we should be able to generate EMC is by connecting into our mob farms. So there is a importer bus or import bus that should only allow learned items into the system. And so all of these items should be learned, which is going to be a nice way of filtering these things. And so I should be able to just send this. And now if I add some speed upgrades into this, this should now start pulling out all of the learned items and just exchanging them directly for EMC values. So now we really start to see the strain on the network by having this running. With those cards, we're jumping up to like 40,000 FE per tick that is being used just to power our applied energistics system. But all of this is going to be very well worth it because we'll be able to utilize any of these EMCable items inside of crafts down the road, which is going to be nice. Just by simply having an exporter on anything, it'll just be able to instant craft it with a crafting card. Now, something I completely looked over, and that is the extended versions of these exporters. And I probably could have used the extended versions right here which work even faster than this current version. So there's also an extended transmutation import bus, and also I believe an export version as well. Yeah, that is actually, it doesn't seem like there's an export version, which is kind of interesting, but there is an interface and there's also an importer. Oh, nope, it just doesn't look the same. It's definitely an export bus here as well. So that's kind of cool. So let me go ahead and try and utilize that here. So I know how fast we were kind of generating it with the upgrades that this currently had, but let's try and utilize an extended export bus on this. And that should go even faster because apparently it has 2 more upgrade slots. So now sending Cobble to this should be even quicker than before. So our EMC value should end up just skyrocketing. And we're probably going to use these extended versions as well down the road whenever we go to, for example, make a ton of different cobblestone and compressed cobblestone variants for the Altamont Star. Just to show how fast these extendeds are, look how quickly this is now sending in all of those materials. This is like 16,000 items that it's just like instantaneously sending in, that's insanely fast. And so now we have ProjectE integrated into our Applied Energetics system, and this, well, leads us into something. I just don't know yet what we're going to be utilizing it all for, but if there is anything that we need it for, now we have access to all of those items stored in our system. So if you did enjoy today's episode and you learned something new, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and well, give this video a huge thumbs up. And with that being said, it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that huge thanks is going to go out to Grayson. Thank you so much, by the way, for your amazing support by choosing to support me over on the Discord and becoming a Discord premium member and supporting in one of the best ways possible. I thank you all so very much for watching. It's been a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next one. And as always, of course, again, thanks for watching. Bye!